Welcome back to Stunning Truth, dear. Also, join my Patreon for secret content. Now, let's begin our new story. The clinic. The room smelled like antiseptic and plastic. That faint hospital clean scent that never really smells clean, just cold. Ryan sat on the edge of the padded bench, fingers tapping nervously against the paper sheet. It crackled beneath him with every shift. His wife had stayed in the car. She said she'd meditate, maybe pray a little. He admired how optimistic she still was. They'd been trying for 2 years now, tracking ovulation apps, eating fertility diets, dodging awkward family questions at every get-together. This was his part now. Male fertility enhancement, they'd called it. Nothing to be ashamed of. Just a little hormonal boost, human chorionic gonadotropin HCG. His doctor had explained it like it was no big deal. Just a temporary protocol to stimulate production. Help his numbers. Give them a better shot. The nurse walked in, cheerful, brisk, blonde ponytail, name tag he didn't catch. All right, Mr. Hayes. Just a little poke. You've done this before? He shook his head. First time. No worries. Most men feel totally fine afterward. Might get a bit of mood swing or water retention, but it's all part of the process. You'll be helping those swimmers get strong and active. Ryan smiled politely. He didn't love being talked to like a kid, but he let it go. The vial. She reached into the drawer, pulled out a small vial and a fresh syringe, popped the cap off with one gloved hand. He watched her closely, more out of nerves than suspicion, but something about the vial caught his eye. A white sticker had been placed across the label. Sloppy, uneven, like it was covering something. He squinted. Was that tape? His gut whispered, ask. His mouth didn't. Instead, he glanced at the nurse as she loaded the syringe. That's the HCG, right? She didn't pause. Yep, standard protocol. You're on the 6-month plan, correct? He nodded. Yeah, 6 months. That's a long time, he thought. But if it works, maybe by Christmas we'll have news. He exhaled and rolled up his sleeve. The needle went in smooth. A pinch, then warmth, then gone. She pressed a cotton ball and taped it down with a practice swipe. All done. See you next week. Same time. Ryan stood, walked out of the clinic, past the bland reception desk, through the automatic doors, and into the hot afternoon sun. In the passenger seat, his wife looked up from her phone and smiled. That was quick. Yeah, he said, sliding into the driver's seat. Didn't even feel it, but as he turned the key, that tape-covered label flickered in his mind again. For a split second, the smile slipped from his face. He almost said something, but didn't. Week 2. By week 2, Ryan felt different. Not alarmingly, not even noticeably at first, just better. Mornings didn't feel so heavy anymore. The usual grogginess that clung to his skin like static was gone. He woke up feeling clear, even a little energized. He chalked it up to clean eating, no caffeine, and the fertility meditation app his wife made him try. Week 3, the energy turned into calm. There were fewer arguments over nothing, less jaw-clenching in traffic, less feeling like a failure every time he opened the fertility tracker and saw another blank space under positive progress. Instead, he found himself humming while folding laundry, noticing how the warm towel felt as he pressed it to his face, touching his own skin more gently in the shower, and noticing how it responded. It wasn't just cleaner. It felt smoother, softer, almost like someone had swapped out his soap when he wasn't looking. The mirror. One night, after brushing his teeth, he paused in front of the mirror. His skin looked different, more color, brighter under the eyes, less rough. His wife leaned over his shoulder, peeking into the reflection. Babe, she said with a grin. You've got like a pregnancy glow. Should I be worried you're stealing my hormones? He laughed, brushing her off. It's probably just the hydration. You've been shoving those water bottles at me nonstop. Still. Your skin's kind of pretty, she teased, tugging at his chin. He rolled his eyes and kissed her on the cheek. But after she left the room, he didn't move. He stared at himself in a mirror, tilting his face slightly, running a hand over his jaw, looking too long. Not in a vain way. More like curious. Later that night, as she slept beside him, Ryan quietly searched male skin estrogen effects on his phone under the blanket. The results were vague, mostly bodybuilding forums, transition threads, a few warnings about imbalances. He closed the tab, told himself he was just overthinking. Still, the next morning in the shower, he lingered a little longer. Took his razor and really shaved. Not just the beard, everything from the neck down. Arms, chest, even thighs. Hygiene, he whispered out loud. But he didn't quite believe it himself. The soreness. The soreness started as a whisper. Just a bit of pressure beneath his chest when he rolled out of bed one morning. He rubbed at it absent-mindedly, half asleep, then winced when his fingers pressed too hard. By day's end, even the lightest shirt felt noticeable. Not painful, not sharp, just wrong. A dull throb, like a quiet bruise beneath the skin. He stood in the bathroom that night, shirt off, trying to see if anything looked swollen. The mirror showed almost nothing. But under his fingertips, he felt it, a subtle roundness, a thickness that hadn't been there before. His chest had always been flat, broad, normal. Now it felt tender, warm. He changed into a loose hoodie and tried to shake the feeling. Told himself it was just part of the HCG working. Hormones did strange things. He didn't talk to his wife about it. Didn't want to worry her. The closet. But later that night, when she'd fallen asleep, Ryan slipped quietly out of bed. The hallway light cast long shadows as he stepped into their shared closet. He hesitated, staring at her section. Folded camisoles, loose V-neck tops, a sea of soft cotton and sleep-worn fabrics. His hand moved before his mind caught up. He reached for one of her old sleep tops, pale blue, worn thin, with little white flowers fading at the edges. It smelled like detergent and lotion. Not sexy, not exciting. Just gentle. In the bathroom, he slipped it over his head. The fabric clung lightly to his chest, resting against the soreness in a way that felt like an answer. He stood there staring at his reflection. Bare legs, hairless arms, soft shirt draped over a body that no longer felt entirely male. Eyes wide, breath tight. He crossed his arms over his chest, a protective instinct, but it only made the new shape more obvious. "What's happening to me?" His voice cracked slightly as he said it. A long silence. Then he pulled the shirt off slowly, folding it neatly. He walked barefoot back to the closet and placed it exactly where it had been. Not a wrinkle out of place. Month 3. By the end of month 3, Ryan couldn't lie to himself anymore. His chest had grown. Not fat, not weight gain, actual growth. Rounded, firm. He tried doubling up his undershirts, layering looser hoodies. But every morning when he dried off from the shower, he'd see it. A gentle curve, a heaviness, soft skin where muscle used to be. He measured himself once, quietly, in the bedroom while his wife was out buying groceries. The tape measure trembled in his hands. 32B. He dropped the tape into the drawer and closed it fast. That night, as they sat on the couch, she curled up beside him, rested her head against his shoulder, then shifted. "Hey," she said casually. "Your chest is kind of firm." He froze. She looked up, playful. "Are you working out without telling me? Stealing my push-up bras?" She laughed. He forced a smile. "No, I mean, maybe the supplements. Water retention. Something." She let it go, but her eyes lingered for half a second longer than usual. The women's section. A week later, Ryan stood in front of a department store mirror alone. He had told her he needed new undershirts, that his old ones were shrinking. He walked past the men's section, straight to women's basics. He told himself it was just for fit, just for comfort. Women's tees were softer anyway, better for sensitive skin. He picked out 2 V-necks, neutral colors, size small. The fabric clung gently, but didn't squeeze. He bought them without trying them on, carried the bag like it held secrets. That night, he waited until she was asleep, then slipped one on. The way it hugged his chest felt right, like it was made for this new body he didn't ask for, but somehow wasn't rejecting either. The wig. The next day, he walked into the guest bathroom, locked the door, and typed into his phone, "Cheap short brown wig, natural look, discreet shipping." He found one for $23.99. It arrived 3 days later. He left it in the trunk of his car. One evening after work, he parked at the far end of a grocery store lot. The sun had just started to set, painting everything in soft gold. He pulled out the wig, slipped it on. It was synthetic, a little itchy, but passable. It framed his face differently, rounded it, softened his jaw, drew attention to his eyes. Then, he did something he hadn't done since all this started. He turned the rear-view mirror to face himself and stared. He didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't look away. There was someone else there. Not his old self, not a stranger, just someone softer. He didn't know her name, but he didn't hate her. Not anymore. The phone call. It came on a Tuesday. Ryan had just stepped out of the shower, towel wrapped around his waist, rubbing lotion into his arms, something he never used to do. His skin drank it in now. Everything about him felt more sensitive these days. His phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. Fertility and Reproductive Center. He froze. Let it ring once, twice, then answered. Ryan Hayes. A man's voice. Steady, clinical. This is Dr. Patel from the clinic. Do you have a minute to talk? Ryan's stomach dropped.
Sure.
Yeah, he said, tightening the towel around his waist. Is something wrong? A pause. We received your blood work back from the panel we ran after your second month. I'd like you to come in, but I also want to give you a heads up. Another pause. Your estradiol levels are extremely elevated. In fact, they're consistent with someone on high-dose feminizing hormone therapy. Ryan blinked. What? We've reviewed the logs, and it appears you were administered estradiol valrate instead of your prescribed HCG weekly for 6 months. The dosage was significant. This is a serious error. His mouth went dry. He sat down on the edge of the bathtub, staring at his reflection in the steamed-up mirror. His body.
His chest.
The curves that hadn't been there before. You're saying, he whispered, that this, the breast growth, the emotions, that's from you. The doctor's voice went flat. We take full responsibility. I understand this is likely very distressing, and I want to be clear. The changes you've experienced are medically real and may not be reversible without intervention. Ryan's mind spiraled. Months of memory snapped into focus. The softness. The emotions. The way clothes fit. The way he'd cried during a cereal commercial last week. The wig in the trunk. The women's tease. The mirror he'd stared into just days ago. Oh my God, he said, barely audible. He ended the call politely, robotically. Then sat there in the silence, towel loose, arms crossed over a chest he no longer recognized. How do you tell your wife that the fertility shots that were supposed to help you become a father had changed you into something else entirely? Not just emotionally, not just physically, but in ways you can't name. The pregnancy. It happened 3 days after the phone call. Ryan hadn't told her yet. The words sat like rocks in his mouth every time he tried to speak. He drafted a dozen versions of "we need to talk" in his head, but none of them sounded right. So he stayed silent. Folded laundry. Cooked dinner. Smiled when she spoke. Pretended his chest wasn't sore under 2 layers of shirts. Pretended the wig in his trunk didn't exist. Pretended the curve of his hips was in his imagination. Then came the moment. She burst into the room, barefoot, shaking, eyes wide, holding something small in her trembling hand. A plastic stick. A faint pink line. She wasn't crying at first. Not yet. She was too stunned, frozen. Then it hit her all at once. Oh my God, Ryan, she said, voice cracking. I'm pregnant. The world tilted. He blinked at her, at the test, at her flushed cheeks and glassy eyes. Pregnant. After all the failed charts, after all the expensive appointments, after the injections and vitamins and stress and tears, she was pregnant. A father. He was going to be a father. And yet, as she threw her arms around him, sobbing, laughing, burying her face in his shoulder, Ryan held her tight, but crossed his arms over his chest. Because his breasts pressed against her. And he didn't want her to feel it. Not now, not while she was glowing. Not while he was breaking. The bathroom mirror. Later that night, she fell asleep early, exhausted and peaceful in the glow of that little miracle. Ryan sat alone in the bathroom, shirtless, the light above him flickering faintly. He looked at himself in the mirror. Chest full, hips rounded, face softer, younger, feminine. A father. A mother. Neither.
Both.
He didn't know. Tears rose before he could stop them. Not from sadness exactly, from confusion, from the sheer weight of it all. He placed a hand on his belly. Nothing there. He was not the one carrying the child. But somehow, he felt like he had changed just as much. The wig is found. It was a Thursday when she found the wig. Ryan had forgotten to lock the trunk. She went to grab the groceries herself, popped the trunk open, and there it was. A brown synthetic wig in a plain box, unlabeled, dusty. That night, she didn't mention it. The next day, she noticed the laundry, a delicate V-neck tee that wasn't hers. Then another, and a set of soft, neutral-colored leggings folded too precisely for how she usually tossed hers into the drawer. Still, she said nothing. She was watching. The third night it happened. Ryan thought she was asleep. The house was dark, just a sliver of hallway light spilling into the bathroom. He stood at the mirror, wearing one of the shirts, the bra beneath it fitting better than it had last week. His body was changing faster now. Or maybe he was just noticing it more. He had the wig on. He didn't pretend it wasn't real anymore. He didn't even flinch when he caught his reflection. But he did flinch when her voice came from behind him. "Is that why you've been so quiet?" He turned sharply. She stood barefoot in the doorway, arms folded across her belly, the faintest glow of life already growing inside her. She didn't look angry, didn't look disgusted, just tired and sad. The confession. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again, and then it spilled. Not rehearsed, not polished, not a grand speech. Just broken pieces of truth. The clinic messed up. It wasn't HCG. It was estrogen. For 6 months. He looked down at the floor. I didn't know. At first, I thought it was working. Then things started changing, and I couldn't make it stop.
My chest.
My emotions. My everything. Silence. He kept going. I didn't want to hide it, but I didn't know how to say it. I didn't want to ruin this, or scare you, or seem weak, or his voice cracked. I didn't want you to look at me and not see me anymore. A long pause filled the space between them. No sound but the hum of the old bathroom fan. Then, quietly, softer than a whisper. Why didn't you tell me you were scared? He looked up at her, eyes wet. I was terrified, he said. She stepped forward slowly, touched the edge of the wig, brushed a strand behind his ear like it was nothing more than a piece of hair in her way. Then she said, You're still here, and so am I. Learning together. It started with the razor. She knocked on the bathroom door one morning, toothbrush in hand, and said casually, You're going to get razor burn if you keep shaving like that. Ryan looked up from the sink, cheeks blotched, chest red from the two-blade. She stepped in without waiting. Here, she said, reaching around him. Shorter strokes with the grain, not against. And exfoliate before, not after. He just nodded. Let her guide his hand. It wasn't a big moment, but something shifted. Later that week, she brought home a small bag from the drugstore. Inside, a light foundation, a blending sponge, and a quiet smile. I didn't know your shade, she said, but we'll figure it out. He hesitated. You really want to do this with me? She sat him down at the vanity. Ryan, she said gently, dabbing a drop onto his cheek, I don't know what this is yet. But I know you don't have to figure it out alone. The sponge was soft.
Cool.
He flinched at first. But when she stepped back and he looked in the mirror, he didn't look like a woman. But he didn't look like the man he remembered either. He looked like someone trying. And that felt like a beginning. Finding balance. They practiced walking in the hallway late at night, in heels she'd outgrown years ago. He wobbled, laughed, cursed under his breath. Relax your shoulders, she said from the couch, watching. You look like you're marching into war. I feel like I am, he muttered, half joking. But when he loosened his frame, let his hips swing just slightly, found his balance, something clicked. I don't hate this, he whispered. She nodded. I know. One evening, she made tea. They sat on the back porch, watching the sky turn violet. She reached for his hand. Have you thought of a name? She asked softly. He shook his head. I don't even know if I'm her or him, or somewhere in between. She squeezed his fingers. That's okay. But maybe it would help. Just something to breathe through.
He thought for a long time.
Then said a name. Soft, simple, familiar but new. A name only they would share for now. No ID, no social media, just a quiet knowing between them. When she said it out loud for the first time, he closed his eyes and exhaled. The doctor's office. The doctor's office was colder than he remembered. Ryan sat across from Dr. Patel again, this time fully clothed but somehow more exposed than ever. We've stopped the estradiol, obviously, the doctor was saying. Your levels will taper over the next few months. Some of the changes will reverse. Some won't. Ryan nodded, numb. You may lose some of the breast tissue. Your fat distribution may shift again. Voice, hard to say. Skin, partially. He folded his hands. You're at a kind of crossroads now. If you do wish to continue hormone therapy, we can guide that process carefully this time. He didn't answer. Because he didn't know. Back home, the conversation sat between them like a third presence at the table. The baby had become real now. Ultrasounds, vitamins, a growing curve beneath her shirt. But Ryan hadn't grown into anything yet. He still didn't know where he belonged. Some days he wore loose jeans and big hoodies. Other days, soft blouses and the light foundation she had helped to match. Sometimes she called him Ryan. Sometimes she whispered the other name, the one only they used when he was quiet, shaking, unsure. Learning to look. The mirror no longer scared him. That was the strange part. He still didn't understand the reflection, still couldn't quite say who he saw there. But he no longer recoiled from it. He would look and breathe, and sometimes nod. What terrified him now was the outside world. The strangers, the stares, the questions, the assumptions. The moment someone would say sir or ma'am, and he wouldn't know how to answer. One night, he sat beside her in bed, legs pulled up, fingers absently rubbing lotion into his arms. I don't know what I'm doing, he said softly. She turned off the lamp, leaving only the glow of the night light by the crib they'd just built. You don't have to know. But what if I pick the wrong thing? Go too far, or not far enough? She took his hand, rested it gently on her belly. You already made one choice, she said. To stay.
To be here with me.
With them. He swallowed hard. His throat burned. Whatever you choose, she whispered, we raise this baby together. He didn't respond, just leaned into her. And for the first time in weeks, he slept deeply.
The door.
The outfit was simple, just a soft beige blouse, loose at the sleeves, and a pair of fitted jeans that sat comfortably on hips that hadn't looked like this a year ago. No makeup today, just a little lip balm. His nails were clean, unpainted. Hair pulled back under the wig, neat, brushed, real enough for now. He stood at the apartment door, keys in one hand, the other on the handle. Not trembling from fear exactly, but from the weight of the moment. The memory of all the days he'd avoided this exact scene. The hallway outside was quiet. Just the hum of lights, distant sounds, the world waiting. Behind him, she stood barefoot, hands resting gently on the growing swell of her belly. You don't have to go out if you're not ready, she said softly. I know, he replied. His voice had changed just a little. Not high, not low, somewhere in the middle now. Uncertain, like the rest of him. I'm not sure who I am, he whispered. She stepped forward, smoothed the crease in his sleeve with her palm. Then we'll learn together. For a moment he didn't move. Then slowly, quietly, he opened the door. Not wide, not all the way, but enough to let in light. And then he stepped forward. Not fully transformed, but no longer hiding.